guys, today we're doing something a little bit different. Dickie isn't here. Seriously though. Last week, as you can probably tell from the title and from this badge, if you could see it, I was a very lucky boy. I got to go and see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Parts 1 and 2, the actual play, as in at the Palace Theatre in Leicester Square in London. I got the tickets to prove it. And there's plenty of reviews on YouTube right now of the screenplay, which is available in book form. You literally just read the screenplay. It's not a novel, it's just like a screenplay of the actual production. And the response has been a little bit lukewarm. And I think that's because people haven't seen the actual show. Now, I saw it last week, which at the time of recording is about 5 days ago. The 4th and 5th of August, the opening week. So I consider myself extremely lucky to be able to see it so soon and avoid any spoilers. Hashtag keep the secrets is what this badge says. And I'm going to talk about the actual play. Where to begin? I suppose the best way would be to start briefly with a little rundown of the story. Now, I'm going to try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible. The basic storyline picks up straight after the Deathly Hallows. In fact, the opening scene is a reenactment of the final chapter of Deathly Hallows, where Harry and Ginny are seeing off their youngest son, Albus Severus Potter, which is still a really bad name, on his first day at Hogwarts. And he's a little bit concerned because he's afraid he's going to get sorted into Slytherin, like his big brother James keeps teasing him. And Harry tries to put his mind at ease and says, "Don't worry, you're named after Severus Snape, who was a really brave wizard anyway. He was a Slytherin, and to be honest, if you're really that bothered, you can kind of choose, like Harry did." So he goes off to Hogwarts. On the train, though, he meets a young boy, very pale, blonde hair. You already know where I'm going with this. He's sitting very lonely in his compartment, and Albus decides to join him, and just like in the Philosopher's Stone, they become best of friends forever. And that boy is Scorpius Malfoy, Draco's son. From there, we basically learn that Albus and Harry have some father-son issues. Albus overhears a conversation between Harry and Amos Diggory, who was Cedric Diggory's father, where Amos has heard of a unique time turner which allows you to go back more than an hour. It allows you to go back years. And Amos wants to be able to use the time turner to try and change the course of the events that took place at the end of Goblet of Fire and essentially save Cedric. Harry, understandably, is very opposed to this butterfly effect, if anyone's heard of it. You know, the slightest change in past could devastate the future. You don't know how. So saving someone's life is surely going to have some drastic side effects. Harry is opposed to it, and Amos resents Harry for it because Harry was the one Voldemort was always after. By the way, I'm going to pronounce it Voldemort. Reason for that being that's the way apparently it was always supposed to have been said. It's just the movies decided to put the T at the end. I'm assuming no one asked JK if that was correct, because to be fair, she has had a lot of input into the films. I would get the feeling she'd have corrected them, but I guess she just didn't know. But they call it, they do pronounce it as Voldemort in the actual play. So I'm going to be pronouncing it Voldemort. Probably from now on, actually, because I think it sounds better. Ugh, where was I? I lost my place. Voldemort was after Harry, not Cedric. Cedric just happened to be there. And the famous words when he was offed was, "Kill the spare." And that's never... I think that's always haunted Amos, that's all Cedric was considered, and that's why he was offed. And he will always blame Harry for that. Albus hears this conversation, hears Harry has no interest in helping Amos, despite the fact that he eventually finds out that the Ministry does have such a time turner. He decides he's going to right one of his father's wrongs, probably hoping to be living up to the name in some way by doing that. He and Scorpius decide they're going to break into the Ministry of Magic, steal this time turner, and save Cedric Diggory's life in the past. And that's about all I really want to say, story-wise, because it's not like you guys can't experience it anyway. You have a means. And there are people who want to go and see the play themselves, who don't want much more than that actually revealed. I feel like that's just kicking the story off. It does develop a lot more from there. So I feel comfortable saying that much and no more. When I actually thought of the story wasn't the strongest point of the play, and I think that's why response to the screenplay hasn't been as good as, say, the response to a book would be. Some people are wrongly considering this. The advertising campaign's kind of annoying me that they keep saying that this is the, does it say it on here? Yeah. The 8th story 19 years later. They're kind of making it out to be the 8th book, and they really shouldn't be. It's just a story that happens to take place after the main series of books. It's not book 8. And that annoys me, that they keep saying that it's the 8th story. It feels more like it's just experimenting, having fun with the world of Harry Potter and doing it through a play. The screenplay should just be a means for people to, see what did happen in that play. But I feel like it's more of an experiment than anything else. The story has things like travelling back in time and things like that, so that you're able to go back and reintroduce characters that maybe have died at that point in the story. You get to use them. You get to revisit old classic scenes. You get to see them done differently, though, on stage in front of you. They use a lot of excuses to go back and see some old plots and see some old characters. For example, there's a lot of dream sequences where we get to see a young Harry and the Dursleys and Hagrid, and these are characters that are not relevant to the present of the story, but are, you get to see them if they do that. Fanfic isn't, a bit fanficky is not a phrase I'm comfortable with using, but it's probably kind of appropriate. But that said, that's kind of what makes it fun, and that's what I want people to understand about the play. It's fun. It's a fun thing to experience. It really is. It's funny. It's hilarious, actually. The audience I was sitting with, myself included, were laughing the whole way through. Not in the sense that it's a farce, but in the sense that the jokes and the humour was strong. The story is fine. It's not a bad story at all. All I really want people to take away from it, though, is what's carrying the story is the characters. And the characters are probably the strongest thing about the play. And we're going to talk a little bit about the characters now. What I have here is a program that I purchased. By the way, that's an image of the Palace Theatre. It's been all decorated to look nice and cool. I purchased this just to say that I'd been, if you know what I mean. I wanted a little souvenir. I didn't want to spend too much money because I had the holiday coming up. But I bought this program, and it helpfully has a lot about the cast. There's a certain page I'm looking for. Where is it? Here we are. If there's one thing that I can commend pretty much back to front without, any flaws, is the acting, the actual cast itself. It was, I have to admit, some of these, I was worried. We got so used to the main three, Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint and Emma Watson. I was a little concerned that it would be too hard to adjust to a new set of faces playing the roles, even if they are much older. Everyone was strong, but I do have some favourites, and I'm going to start with one of them, which is right here. And I've forgotten his name. Give me a sec. Here we are. Jamie Parker, who plays the older version, the middle-aged version of Harry Potter. I don't know if it was intentional, or not, considering the play is kind of making a point of telling you this is different to the movies, I kind of feel like he's got some of Daniel Radcliffe's mannerisms. The way he stands and walks, and when you see him sort of just standing there and he's thinking, he kind of holds himself like in a pose, kind of what you would expect Daniel Radcliffe's Harry to do. Like I said, I don't know if it's intentional, but I noticed it, and I wasn't the only one who noticed it. He does a great job of being a father that is trying and missing the mark, but not intentionally, and not because he's being ignorant to Albus's problems or anything like that. The thing about Harry and Albus is they're naturally just two different people, and their upbringing is very different as well, and they don't appreciate each other's problems. So when Harry is missing the mark as a father, we don't dislike him or hate him or think he's going wrong, because he isn't trying hard enough, and that's difficult to pull off, but he did a great job. Poppy Miller as Ginny, this was probably one of the best actresses of the piece. She's not in it all that much, but the casting of it was perfect, and reason being, she acts like the book Ginny. The book Ginny was really feisty. They don't quite get that across in the films. She's got one or two moments, but she's not really what she was like in the book. In the book, she's a very strong character. That comes across, definitely, and I'm thinking of one scene in particular. I'm not going to describe the scene as much as I want to. I want to, spoiler free. That's my aim, spoiler free. But also, everyone who's looked at her, everyone who saw her has kind of said, that looks like Bonnie Wright, the Ginny from the film. So she looks familiar, sounds and acts familiar to the book, and she just has a presence. And it's the strength of the book Ginny that's coming through that's doing that. And I think the best way to describe it is it's the same kind of presence as Molly Weasley, and I'm wondering whether or not that was pushed forward as maybe some kind of direction for her, I wouldn't be surprised. Paul Thornley as Ron Weasley, probably one of the funniest characters of the whole thing. I don't think any other character got given as many jokes as Ron did, and he did a great job delivering them. I have to say, they pretty much all hit the mark. And as I keep saying, the response to the screenplay has been kind of lukewarm, and I think that's because it's a very funny script, but not when you kind of read it. It takes the delivery that was intended for it to really be pulled off, and Ron knew how to deliver these lines in a really funny way, and he isn't the only one. The other funny character is kind of a surprise, but a pleasant one. I'll explain in a moment, but yeah, Ron, in terms of the story, he doesn't really do much significant. He's kind of just along for the ride because he's a favourite, but he's making it all a lot more fun. Heaven help me. I'm looking at how to pronounce the surname. Hermione Granger, played by Noma Dumazweedy? I really hope that's correct. Alright, pronunciation of the surname aside, actually, this was the big controversial casting choice, just because it's not like, Ron isn't a redhead, he's blonde in the play, but no one really kicked off too much about that. When it came to Hermione, they completely changed her ethnicity. But honestly, she played it kind of like the book Hermione. I really didn't. There was a little bit of an adjustment period, but not that long, and I warmed up to this version of Hermione. I thought it was a pretty good one, and considering the role that Hermione finds herself in, it makes sense. that they got what I consider to be a stronger actress. I don't mean that in the sense that Emma Watson is a poor actress. When I say stronger, I mean that there is a certain authority and firmness in her voice that Emma Watson touches upon. She isn't too far off in the films, but I just feel like this is a stronger Hermione in the sense of, she's more powerful. And also returning from the original books is Alex Price playing Draco Malfoy, and I really liked him, actually. Again, he doesn't have loads to do. He has more to do than Ron. He strikes his perfect balance between, you can see where Lucius Malfoy's influence has played a role in how he acts as a father and a grown wizard, but he's very obviously and clearly and thankfully on the side of the good guys. And he's not entirely uncomfortable being there. He's a little uneasy at times when he has to go and speak with the likes of Harry and Ginny and Ron and Hermione. But you get that he's on their side. He might be a little shorter with them, more curt with them, more aggressive with them occasionally. But ultimately, him and specifically Harry both end up trying to fight for the same thing. In a strange way, Draco was kind of setting an example that Harry should have been following. He understood his son more than Harry understood his. And speaking of the sons, let's move on to the main two protagonists, and they're both new characters. We have Sam Clement, or whatever, as Albus Severus Potter. And he does a decent job. The problem with his character is he's a very whiny character. He has a lot to learn. He has father issues, obviously. And sometimes it is a little tough to like him. But you understand his problem, and you understand why he's frustrated and why he does the stuff that he does. But all I'm going to say is, it feels like he was supposed to be the main character. But then, we all kind of left the play thinking someone else was the main character. And it was his best friend, Scorpius Malfoy. And he was played... Where are you, Scorpius? By Anthony Boyle, who, ladies and gentlemen, is the star of the show. Has to be said, I never expected it, but Scorpius Malfoy was probably one of the two funniest characters in the play. He was funny. He knew how to deliver his lines, but he's easily, out of all of them, the strongest character. Easy to get behind. Scorpius is if you ask me, the real star of the show. Now there are obviously other characters and other cast members, and I'd like to talk about them, but some of it's a little bit spoilery. For example, I'd like to be able to talk about the new baddie. All I'm going to say is, I didn't clock on straight away. And actually, as an antagonist, I feel it felt kind of fresh, but I don't know, maybe nowhere near as threatening as Voldemort. It's that simple. McGonagall makes a return, and she's played brilliantly. It's just out of interest, who played McGonagall? Because I believe she was played by the same actress who played the Trolley Witch. Sandy McDade, if that's how it's pronounced. Played McGonagall and the Trolley Witch. Can I just say, by the way, the Trolley Witch was also hilarious. I don't want to give anything away, but yeah, the Trolley Witch. I'll never be able to see any Hogwarts Express scene the same way again. That's about all I'm really prepared to say about the characters, because I feel like if I say too much more, I'm going to start getting into spoiler territory. So instead, I'm going to briefly talk about the overall production, starting with pacing. I noticed it very quickly. This is a story that moves. It is so fast-paced. The set that they're on is constantly changing. Now that's nothing new. I've seen plays before where the set's moving and it keeps changing around the actors, but never this much. This was a very frequently changing set. Now some of it is left up to your imagination. For example, they may substitute a graveyard with the suitcases that they used in a Hogwarts Express scene, but it's you kind of just buy it because they know they're not pretending that this isn't a play. You know what they mean? They're not trying too hard to convince you that you're watching a movie or that it's all real. You know, they know that you're sitting there watching them and that they're on a stage, so they take a little bit of artistic license that way. I never feel like there was really too many still moments. I mean, there are even scenes where characters aren't moving, but they are kind of moving because they'd be on a rotating part of the stage which is slowly spinning round. You know, so even some of the still scenes feel like there's a beat, like a pace to it. But it never feels like it's going too fast. There's maybe only one or two moments where I feel like, hang on, I missed that. You know, what was that? What did they just say? But for the most part, it's easy to keep up with. But it isn't hanging around. And that's impressive that they're able to do this. Probably one of the things that I always find myself talking about whenever someone asks me what it was like, it doesn't take me at all long to talk about the effects. These were some of the most impressive effects I've ever seen in a play. And it makes sense, it is Harry Potter after all. Now some of these effects are just lighting or pyrotechnics. For example, blasting someone with blasting an Avada Kedavra at someone and a big jet of green flame comes out the side. You know, you can see how it's done. I'm more talking about sleight of hand and things like that. For example, a chair left on the set and they have to remove it. Someone in a cloak walks up to the chair, swishes the cloak over the chair, and the chair just appears to vanish. Obviously he's just picked the chair up in a certain way which looks like it's vanished, but it's the little things like that that impress people. The first time that happened on stage, and it happens a few times throughout, it got a reaction. And a lot of the effects do that. Especially the ones, like, as I say, where you can't quite see how they did it. For example, there's one where Harry is dreaming about the island that the Dursleys fled to in the Philosopher's Stone, and the way it ends is Hagrid walks over to an empty mattress, totally empty mattress, flings, you know, a bed sheet over it, and Harry just kind of materializes up into the bed. Obviously he was underneath it or something, I don't know, but he just kind of appears in there, Ginny next to him, and it's like, whoa, how did that happen? Clothes appear to just change on actors. You don't really know how. There's kind of convincing underwater sequences. Flue powder. Probably one of my favourite effects, and it's so simple. It's one of those where you know how it's done, but you still think, wow, that could go wrong so easily. There's an on-stage wizard's duel, which was one of the highlights easily. If for no other reason how it ended, but yeah, I mean, sure, you can see some of its wire work, and you can see its guys dressed in black behind them and things like that, but that isn't the point. You know, it's how it all comes together to present this unique experience in front of your eyes. Involve the audience in a way. For example, I'm going to say there are Dementors in the story, and there is a moment where the Dementors descend on the audience itself. And I swear, the two girls that I went and saw this with, they're not convinced, but I swear they chilled the room a little, because I felt the shivers. I felt a shiver, and I genuinely felt colder. One of the girls said, "Oh, I did feel a shiver, but I don't think it was any colder," and one of them didn't. feel anything at all, but I'm convinced they chilled that room a bit. And there was another effect which involved the whole theatre, but I'm not going to spoil that one. If you're going to go and see it, I'm going to leave that one, because that one was really, really, really cool. I think the one effect that impressed everyone the most, though, and baffles everyone the most, because I'm still not sure how they did it, was the time turner. When they went back in time and they arrived where they were aiming to go, there was a strange shockwave effect in front of the stage, and no one really knows how the hell they were doing it. Some people think there might be a screen. One of the girls thought maybe there'd be a screen in front and they were just wobbling that a little bit. But I almost don't want to know how they were doing it. All I know is the first time that happened, the whole theatre gasped. They were like, what did we just see? It's the kind of effect you don't think could be possible on stage. But we saw it. What more could you expect? It's Harry Potter. The effects were going to be impressive. What impresses me, though, is that they were impressive not in the sense that they were flashy, but because they were just masterfully done, and with a dignity and a subtlety, which is something I've always liked about the films. The films' effects have always been kind of toned down and subtle, as opposed to other films where the effects are overly done and flashy, and they don't need to be. So, to be honest, I'm not sure what more to say. All I can say is it was definitely worth every penny. I would go back tomorrow if I could. Problem is I can't, because getting tickets is extremely difficult. I actually just want to take a moment, again, despite the fact I've thanked her about a dozen times already. My very good friend Emma, who was able to get tickets for this, she ended up sitting in a digital queue for about, hours in order to get these tickets for the three of us, and I'm glad she did, because they sold out like the following day. And they have just added about 250,000 more tickets. But I don't expect them to last very long. I think the thing that's really putting people off, though, and this is a shame, is the cost. I mean, you have to get 2 tickets to see the whole thing. Ticket for part 1, ticket for part 2. And each part is £65 ticket. So it's about 130 quid to see the whole thing. But you might sell yourself, as we did, it's the Harry Potter play. I'm not going to not go and see it. But it's not even just the ticket prices. It's in London. And the problem with that is each part is on a different night. So you have to go for 2 nights to see both parts. Which means either travelling to London to and from 2 days straight, which isn't cheap, or it means staying over in London, which also isn't cheap. And obviously you have to eat in London, get something to eat in London. That's also not cheap. I was very lucky. One of the girls that went with us, she lives not far from London. She lives in East Grinstead, which meant I could stay there. And we saved a bomb doing that. If I had to pay for a room somewhere in London, like a hotel room, that would have been... I'd be worrying about this holiday, let's put it that way. As it is, I didn't have to pay to stay somewhere, so I was pretty lucky in that regard. But I know that for a lot of people, Dickie and Abby included, the price is a problem. The price is a problem. I've heard a rumour that they're looking at it, that they're going to address that. I really hope they do. I know that all they can really do is change the ticket prices, but it will help. You know, reduce the ticket prices a little bit. I'm not going to say it isn't worth it. I feel it was worth every penny, but then I'm saying that having seen it in its opening week. I'm taking that into account. The seats themselves, by the way, weren't bad. Not the best. The problem with some of the old-fashioned theatres is they don't account very much for the height of people. So if you get tall people sitting at front, the short people at the back have a problem. I'm lucky I'm not exactly short, but I did have to swap with one of the girls who couldn't see past this guy's big head, who actually we both noticed looked a lot like James Corden. It wasn't James. So yeah, price could use a bit of work, especially, I just feel like I should mention this. I kind of should know better, because it's a theatre, and when you get there they sort of have you. I mean, everyone knows not to buy sweets and drinks from a cinema. But I was enjoying myself. It got to the first intermission and I thought, I want a drink. I don't have to drive tonight, so for once I can actually get a alcoholic beverage. I should have known why there wasn't much of a queue at the bar, and I should, like I said, there should have been warning. I asked for a Magners, and it was over £5, which was already like, eek, that's expensive. But I'm thinking, it's alright, Magners bottles are nice big things, and out comes this piddly little Budweiser-sized bottle of Magners, and I think, oh no, I've been stung. So I'm only telling you that story to illustrate why the high price is kind of cheeky, considering what you will spend when you get there. One thing I was pleased about though was the programme was reasonable enough. It was only £5. There is, however, I kind of really wanted one, but like I say, I'm trying to be careful what I spend because I have a holiday coming. There was a really fancy programme that you could only purchase after you've seen both parts, and it had some spoilery stuff in it. It had like screenshots of the actual play as it is playing. I thought about it, but it was like 30 quid. So I was like, one bit of merch, which was actually gifted to me, very kindly, was this. Before I turn this round, this is a pin badge which has the redesigned dark mark on it for the play. If you're not interested in seeing, or if you don't want to see that, if you don't want it spoiled, then obviously for the next 5 seconds probably look away. That was very nicely gifted to me. I haven't opened it yet. I'm not sure if I will, because I kind of feel like it's a collector's item. That, by the way, was not purchased at the play. This was purchased from the Platform 9 3/4 shop at King's Cross, which we visited while we were there, because why not? And that's actually my mum's, but I thought it would look... I bought it for my mum, but I actually thought it would suit the video. So he's there. I actually didn't buy anything else, although these badges were handed out for free after part 1. Totally for free. Hashtag keep the secrets is what it says. Because obviously we don't want people... You don't want people spending 130 quid on tickets to have all of the story spoiled for them before they get there. So, would I recommend it? Absolutely. Yes, I thought it was brilliant. I had a great time. I really did. I would go again tomorrow if I could, but it's expensive and getting tickets is hard enough as it is. But yeah, do I think they'll do more of these? I don't know, just because the nature of this one was kind of like just having fun with it. It doesn't feel like it's the start of a new series. It doesn't feel like we'll see a load of plays based on Albus and Scorpius and their adventure. I really don't see that happening. If we do see another Harry Potter story set after the Deathly Hallows, I think it'll actually come in between. You know, maybe we will see Harry working at the Ministry and Hermione maybe working her way up through the Ministry as well. You know, something that comes in between the two. This and Deathly Hallows. I don't see anything coming after it. I really don't. Ways to improve. I really can't think of anything. I honestly... I mean, there was a standing ovation at the end. And not a polite one where you feel it was... You know, where you feel obliged. everyone stood and gave the performance its due. It was definitely worth the wait, definitely worth the money. If you are going to go though, please, if you can help it, try not to read the screenplay beforehand. I just feel like part of what made it so enjoyable was not knowing what was going to happen. It concerns me that people are reading it and are reading it without being able to appreciate the way it should be seen, which is why I think some of the reviews for The Cursed Child have been not great. I think that's a shame, because if you see it on stage, it makes sense. You understand why they made these decisions. You understand why they picked the story that they picked. As a book, it doesn't really work because it just feels like it's retreading old ground and not trying anything new. But as a play, it totally works. It honestly really does. So, it has been fun. It's been a little weird. I'm not used to doing this on my own. I'm appreciating how difficult it is for YouTube vloggers to sit in front of a camera and just spiel. This wasn't really a vlog, but it feels like one. I'm sitting in front of a camera in a room on my own, talking to myself. It's kind of weird. Also, just a quick apology. I know the channel has slowed down a little bit in the past month or so. We are trying to get back on track, but there's been a bit of a transitional period. Not so much for me, but for Dickie and Abby, definitely. And unfortunately, I'm kind of out of footage. So despite the fact that I kind of have some free time, I don't have footage to kind of play with, if that makes sense. But things are starting to level out again now, so you should be expecting some stuff. And we'll hopefully get back on track to at least, bi-daily, is that even a thing? Bi-daily? Content every other day, let's say. So, yes. Cheers for listening. If you were. If you weren't, then screw you. Bye.